How's everybody doing? It is Michael Schneider. Pleased to be joining you here from St. Petersburg, Florida on this Monday, October 27th. Halloween is 4 days away, and I'm really disappointed, really apologetic, I'd say. It's been about a month since I last came online. What was it? I think last time I posted an episode was in September. It's been, yeah, a little over a month. I apologize again. But um we're bringing it back, and we're bringing it back better than it's ever been. We got an episode today. We're gonna be talking about the college football week 9 review, and then a preview into next weekend, college football week 10. Kind of looking at the schedule right now. Nothing too crazy. I know that game day is going to Cincinnati and Utah. That'll be happening in Salt Lake City. It's gonna be a great game. Loving that. Loving the storylines of that game. And it's going to be an interesting game for both those guys. Cincinnati kind of sneaking in. I know that they beat, I believe Arizona, was it Arizona State beginning of the year? I think that kind of mounted their regime. And then I think they took down Texas Tech too. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I believe so. That'd be an interesting game. We also have Oklahoma, Tennessee. Uh, Not kind of shocked that they didn't go to. Mm, I mean, not really. You know, when we talk about college game day, a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, it's SEC game day, oh this and that." When you look at the schedule for college game day throughout the season, it's been very good, very interesting games, and a lot of these weeks you don't really. I mean, you can't really look at another like any other games that are bigger than this. I mean, it really people kind of underscore the value of and the kind of true definition of what college game day is. It is the best game that the guys in the committee they think what's going to be the best game for them, what's going to be the best environment for them, and it's going to be these games, these high stake games. Obviously sometimes it does get repetitive going to the SEC schools, the big schools like Georgia, Alabama, all this stuff, but you know we're getting into it. We're getting a change up. People can stop complaining. We got a Big 12 matchup. 6-2 Utah Utes. They just bounced back into the college football top 25, the AP poll. And Cincinnati looking like they're going to kind of sneak into the Big 12 championship, potentially even sneak into a playoff spot. So that'll be interesting for them. Obviously, it's been a while since Cincinnati's been to the playoffs. Last time they were there was it? It wasn't with Desmond Ritter, was it? It was. I remember. What was it? Alabama. They played Alabama in the semifinal Cotton Bowl. Obviously, did not go their way. I mean, it was Saban led. It was one of the last great Saban led college football teams. It was 2021, I want to say, because they went on to win the national championship against Ohio State in a huge way. There was no real stopping that Bama team. For a little bit, there was a little bit of a fight, but other than that, we're gonna get right down into it. So, like I said, college football week 9 review today. We have the week 8 review tomorrow for the NFL. A lot of great storylines going on there. Just gonna do the NFL review tomorrow because we still got some games going up, or a game going on today. Tonight, the Commanders and the Chiefs. Still got some guys on my fantasy that I'm hoping will come back. I'm down quite a bit, so we're looking a little rough. But let's get right into it. We're going to kind of run up the schedule and a little bit of subtle foreshadowing when my schedule does clear up more in the future. We're going to be running an all week schedule, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sundays are, obviously the kind of prime time moments for, games and whatnot, excluding the Thursday night football games in the NFL and college football, Friday night games for college football, and then obviously Monday night football. But we're going to kind of format this when we do this weekly schedule. We're going to do all sports. There's sports going on, especially with the NBA coming back. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the week. It's going to be, like I said, so the foreshadowing when my schedule does clear up a lot more, we're going to be getting right into these sporting events. But it's going to be. I'm excited for that. Probably can't do too much right now, but like I said, time will tell. 2026 is going to be a great year. Like I said, we're making some very big jumps in the show, and we're going to be, just kind of elevating the game, elevating the consistency. But I'm glad to be back. Glad to be, talking about sports because I mean, where would I be without sports right now? I don't even know. I would be in shambles. I'd be distraught out of my shell. But let's talk about college football week 9. Yeah, I keep forgetting the weeks. Um, and realistically, I mean, kind of the main thing we kind of got out of week 9 is no, I mean nobody's really safe in this college football, this coaching pool, and a lot of people are getting fired week by week. You know, we had what was it, Billy Napier last week, Brian Kelly this week, the week before Billy Napier, I believe that was when James Franklin got fired, and then the week before that was when UCLA's entire coaching squad just got wiped. Uh, but you know, there's a lot of vacancies right now, a lot of interesting vacancies that are kind of up for grabs right now. And a lot of the stuff when I'm seeing this coaching carousel, which really sticks out to me is Lane Kiffin's name. Lane Kiffin's name is being thrown around all throughout this coaching carousel. A lot of people are saying, especially now, Brian Kelly being dismissed from the Tigers in Baton Rouge. A lot of people are saying he's going there. And if they're saying he's not going there, then they're saying he's going to Gainesville and he's going to Florida. But I mean, I'm really kind of I need to be enlightened. I'm kind of confused with this whole thing because Lane Kiffin, he's building something, you know, I'd say pretty special in Ole Miss, and I'd say he's had the most success this year than he has had with the entire team in general. You know, being able to kind of crack that top 10. I believe she was in top 5 for a few weeks. And I mean, I'd say that with Trinidad Chambliss, literally a transfer quarterback that came in from New Mexico State last year, he's putting up, you know, he's had their great duo. Uh, I I have high hopes for Trinidad in the future, but but it's really confusing to me how a lot of people are saying he's just going to kind of, you know, almost abandon ship, you know, type of mentality here. He's just going to jump ship this year. And when we look at Ole Miss compared to LSU and we look at it compared to Florida, I mean, do these jobs really look that much enticing than, you know, Ole Miss? I mean, Oxford. Uh, I mean, LSU, they have, I'd say definitely LSU. A lot of people are more saying Florida, but it's literally been not even a day since Brian Kelly's been dismissed from the Tigers. So I mean, I'd say a lot more speculation is going to go around that he's going to LSU. But Lane Kiffin and I even forgot to mention also Steve Sarkisian. A lot of people are saying he's going to the NFL. You know, that's more of like it's more of a true abandoned ship type mental or type of ordeal there in Austin. You know, as we know, Texas has been completely lackluster what they've been expected to be and what Arch Manning has expected to be. But I mean, I'd say realistically, it doesn't really come down 100% to Arch Manning. You know, obviously he's shown, you know, he's shown that he's human. He's shown that he's a quarterback that's human, can develop. But obviously this past game, I mean, other than the completion percentage, dude threw like a beast. I mean, it really comes down to his defense. Despite that, Texas was able to survive in Starkville against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. 45-38. I know they were down 17 at one point. But yeah, no, the coaching carousel is kind of just the main focus of college football right now. And when it comes to the national contenders and the national championships, who's going to kind of, you know, be there at the top at the end of the year? I mean, we don't really know. I mean, we're kind of into that part of the season where people are getting eliminated, people are getting, you know, thrown out of the conversation. And we kind of just have like the three main, three or yeah, I'd say three kind of powerhouses. Obviously, you know, Ohio State's staying up there. They haven't, even though Ohio State really hasn't played anybody. Um, a lot of people are saying Ohio State. Ohio State hasn't played anybody. Their resume means literally nothing. Uh, it was proved even more of a nothing this weekend. Obviously, we know Texas is long gone. I mean, I don't even know why they're still in playoff contention. I mean, technically they have only like one or two conference losses. Um, a lot of people can still kind of lose out in the conference. They could still beat Georgia. They could still beat, you know, they could still beat Texas A&M. But I'd say for Texas, it's kind of slim to none. I don't really see them beating Georgia, especially not in Stanford. You know, Georgia's kind of establishing a new win streak at home there in Stanford, and I don't think they're gonna. It's if they couldn't beat Georgia with Quinn Ewers and the team that they had last year, then what damn chance do you think they have this year? I'm not even saying that being biased. I mean, tons of people can agree with me, despite what Georgia's been doing this year, how their slow starts have gotten off to. I think Georgia has a lot more. um, dire problems and a lot more dire, more intimidating foes that they have to kind of focus on. Hence, Georgia Tech. But um, but yeah, I know. The coaching carousels, people are still trying to figure out, who's going to fill James Franklin's spot. And obviously, I don't see Lane Kiffin going there. A lot of people are saying Matt Rule actually, from the Huskers. I know that he was on Pat McAfee's show, I believe, a couple weeks ago, talking about the job switching from Nebraska and the Cornhuskers to go to Penn State because obviously I believe he played there for um, the Nittany Lions. I don't know. He has ties with the Nittany Lions. A lot of people are saying he's going back there. Um, but obviously, when it comes to Nebraska. Nebraska's building a very interesting, season. I mean, they have Dylan Raiola, all this hype around Dylan Raiola, and yet they still can't kind of get to the next level in the Big Ten. Obviously, they're not up there with the big dogs, Mendoza and all the guys in Indiana and Bloomington. Obviously, Ohio State being the solidified favorite for the college or the national championship and the conference. But we're gonna see Big Ten championship is gonna be very interesting to glance at. Indiana and Ohio State still have to play Penn State, which obviously probably going to run through them, unfortunately. But when it comes down to it, we're going to see a lot of interesting things going on this offseason, and bring it all on. Obviously with all these coaches being gone, I know that they landed the number one commit for next year. I believe it was Lamar. I was just actually watching a video on him. I don't believe there's been word of his decommitment yet. He's as of now still with the Nittany or the not the Nittany Lions, the Tigers for next year. Um, but obviously we kind of saw it during the Texas A&M game. When they were getting completely bashed down by the Aggies and Marcel Reed, there was definitely there was distress between Nussmeier and Brian Kelly. And realistically, not to kind of that put him down or anything, but Brian Kelly is a horrible person, I'd say, and I wouldn't say an even worse coach, but I mean, just as bad as a person as he is a coach. Obviously, he's had a lot of, stuff in the past, and we know the whole story with Notre Dame and how Notre Dame's fine now. They're still in the playoff talk, despite being a 5-2 team. But obviously Marcus Freeman's done, a lot more at Notre Dame than Kelly has done, bringing them to a national championship appearance in a 12-team playoff. And realistically, I mean, I'd say that team last year, that Notre Dame team could be a lot of teams this year. They lost Riley Leonard. They still have Jeremiah Love, even though I mean, they just kind of been lurking in the shadows. And I say when the playoffs come around, they're gonna be ramping back up again. I know that Marcus Freeman. I know there's a lot of trust in him. He can get his guys back up to speed. But despite that, enough about the coaching carousel. We're going to kind of look into, what happened this weekend. So, Georgia was on bye. I very, very, I needed Georgia this weekend. Trust me when I tell you I needed Georgia this weekend really bad. Everybody lost this weekend. And we're going to talk about USF. Since I last talked about USF on the show, was it after the Florida game? I think it was after the Florida game. That was so long ago. Wow. But since I've talked about the South Florida Bulls got blown out by Miami. That might have been the last time I talked about them. But they've been kind of surging, pushing, pushing, pushing. They haven't lost a game since then until this Saturday, the 25th. Very heartbreaking fashion to the Memphis Tigers, AAC opponent. Likely kicks them out of contention as of, a front runner for the AAC conference. They were undefeated. Very very abysmal loss. They had that game in control until the fourth quarter. Literally, were up 31-17 going into the fourth quarter and then just completely collapsed. No offensive movement. Defense just kind of got steamrolled down. And then obviously, Automatica, Nico Grammatica misses the game tying kick. And obviously, it doesn't all come down to him. We have to do better than that in the future. I'd say we started off pretty great, first half, usually it's kind of our weak points, starting off slow and then kind of ramping up. You saw that against North Texas. Um, North Texas is also in, conversations for a lot of different stuff. I wouldn't say playoffs anymore, but um, Byron Brown. I mean, about Byron Brown, I mean, he's still doing, I mean, a damn good job, great job. Especially against, a team like Memphis, being such a consistent runner and a passer, having that dual threat ability. He's great for the team. It's just the way that we're composing our offense, we're not getting enough explosiveness. And Byron Brown to be this rusher and to be this passer, you're asking a lot out of him. Unfortunately, a lot of the blame will come down to him offensively, obviously being the quarterback. That's just the way it is in this sport. Uh, but for the Bulls in the future, we still have Navy, still have plenty of interesting AAC games, and we're not completely out of it yet. We still have Tulane. They play Memphis in a couple of weeks or in a few weeks actually. So that'll be either way, one of those guys will have a loss. As long as we keep one loss in the conference, and that being to Memphis, depending on how we do and how the rest of the AAC kind of plays out the rest of the year, if we can make it into that conference championship game, we will win it and we'll be in the playoffs. Um, but despite that, yeah, no, I needed Georgia this weekend. I'm not even going to talk about NFL. Don't even get me. I don't. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Like I said, Tuesday, that's going to be NFL preview or NFL review of just the complete abysmal performance that the Atlanta Falcons had put up against the Miami Dolphins and what that means for them in the future. But despite that, the rest of the week, we had, uh Lane Kiffin and the guys, they survive in Norman, Oklahoma against the Sooners. I know that when we're talking about Lane Kiffin and the way he's going off to apparently going off to abandon ship with Ole Miss and play again or coach for the uh for the Gators or for LSU. I know that there was a clip after the game where Lane Kiffin was talking to one of the Oklahoma players in an interview. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's just doing a little bit of preview recruiting," saying that. I was like, "Okay, oh well, he's probably gonna flip this guy from Oklahoma to Ole Miss, cool like that." But a lot of people are talking about Florida, uh, and that was obviously before the Brian Kelly hiring or the firing of Brian Kelly, not the hiring. Um, and it really it's all just kind of throws me off in a way. I know it's very interesting to talk about these guys and their um I mean he's built something great there in Oxford, and I think that it'll be obviously a huge blow to Old Miss, but I mean he's really built up Old Miss from the ground. um you know but despite that, like I said, they survived there. Obviously a great road win, especially in the SEC after their loss to the Dogs and Stanford last weekend. Other than that, Alabama struggles to South Carolina in Columbia. They end up coming out with a dub. Got some funny clips from that game. Obviously, the students were preparing for a storm field down there, and then no. Bernard ran it in for like a 20 or so yard touchdown. Gave kind of like a walk-off touchdown. Gave the Tide the dub there in Columbia. Don't- I believe they're on bye this week, I want to say. But yeah, very, very funny clip there. But like I said, like I was talking about before, USF is kicked out of the top 25. Memphis is literally 25. They're right on the border, right on the tip. They head to play Rice this Friday. That'll happen in Houston. And we're gonna have some interesting headlines in that one. I know that. Damn it, forgot his name. Drew Mestermeyer, I believe it is. That's his name for North Texas. A lot of people were. I saw a graphic. Um, North Texas AAC team. Obviously, USF beat the absolute shit out of them. Drew Mestermeyer. A lot of people. There's some people. I'm kind of starting to see a surge of when we talk about Heisman favorites at the end of the season. A lot of people are putting his name in the conversation, which really kind of throws me off. Um, Not, I mean, he had that one great performance against Charlotte this weekend, but let's be real, guys. Charlotte is 1-6. They're 0-4 now well, technically 1-7 now. 0-4 now in conference play. I mean, we're kind of just grasping at straws here. Obviously, we know that Mendoza, I'd say, is kind of really leading the pack right now. as to Heisman favorites. Obviously, after beating the absolute piss out of the Bruins and UCLA, or of UCLA in Indiana this weekend. But obviously, it's kind of for grabs right now. Carson Beck completely shit Heisman his Heisman candidate, his Heisman candidacy, his Heisman hopes down the drain a couple weeks ago. Miami's going to be Miami. They're still a top 10 team. Uh, but yeah, that's kind of obviously Texas A&M. I've been a Marshall Reed supporter since day one. Been supporting him since before they even played LSU last year, I believe. Again, the first game he started, really, he kind of came in. I mean, I've been supporting him since day one, realistically. And I'm really excited to see him and the guys kind of, doing their thing down there in College Station. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The A&M Aggies, they're off their hot start. 7-0, one of the only undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in the SEC. One of a handful of undefeated teams in college football. I know that Ohio State obviously fits that category. They haven't really played anybody. Uh, we got not Alabama, Indiana. Got some other teams undefeated too. Georgia Tech, Navy. Yeah, well, some great undefeated teams. I don't know. Is BYU still undefeated? BYU might still be undefeated. I know that they have a bye week this next week. We don't have crazy good games, but we still have some pretty interesting matchups in the top 25. But yeah, we're gonna kind of look into this next week. Week 10, right? Yeah. Week 10 kicks off on Friday. Really, we got Memphis and Rice. Like I said, AAC. Memphis is kind of hot. They're riding off, even though they lost to UAB, they bounced back with a great win over USF. And then we kind of kick into the big noon kickoff, Penn State and Ohio State. And, as a partial Penn State guy myself, I would love in the world for this game to go towards the Nittany Lions, but knowing them, yeah, no. Julian Sand and the guys are going to torch him. It's happening in the Big Shoe too, Columbus, Ohio. And then we also have some other good noon games. We have Miami, SMU. That'll be an interesting game, possibly an upset alert for the Beck-led uh, Hurricanes. That's the first time that Miami will actually be traveling out of Florida. I know that their only away game before this one was at Florida State in Florida. We have Vanderbilt in Texas, and I'm really honestly I'm liking the headline of this one. We have Vanderbilt. They're just coming off a great win against. Well, we didn't cover that part. Very interesting game in Nashville against the Missouri Tigers. Um, but despite Missouri's quarterback going down, they are only stayed within a score lost there in Nashville. They're going to Austin to play the Longhorns and Arch Manning. Uh, and it's gonna be an interesting game to really watch. Texas really needs to kind of keep their SEC hope alive. If they want to keep their playoff hopes alive and their SEC hopes alive, they have to beat Vanderbilt here. Honestly, like a lot of people are hyping up Vanderbilt, but I really see, I mean, especially when you look at the stats here, I mean, I really like. But I know how Texas has been playing. It is a home game. It's gonna be. I feel like that's gonna be an interesting pick. I'm gonna bring out that pick on Saturday. It's gonna be an interesting pick for me. Uh, just the way I'm talking right now is probably gonna lead you to believe that I'm picking Texas, but I mean, I don't know, man. I really have to look back into like kind of. Oh man, that's gonna be an interesting one, actually. That could be. That could be an upset alert. Obviously, Texas beat the shit out of or Oklahoma a couple weeks ago in the Red River rivalry. The Red River rivalry. But when we have West Virginia, Houston, not really a good game. Houston's going to blow West Virginia out of the water. It could be a really weird Big Ten game or Big 12 game where Houston somehow loses, but I don't really see that. Houston's kind of making their way up. Only one loss in the Big 12, so who knows? They could be in there. They could be in the conversation for the Big 12 championship. Seeing Houston in a playoff spot would be very, very interesting for me. Um, Miller Moss, the guys in Louisville, they play Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. Uh, Louisville coming off a bye week. No, they came off a win against. Damn, I'm blanking. No, they came off a win, and then the week before that, a great win against Miami. Only 3-1 in the ACC, so never know. They could be the one playing Georgia Tech this at the end of the season. ACC is kind of up for grabs, other than Georgia Tech. They've kind of solidified their spot in the championship game. And then we have Indiana, Maryland. It's going to be the same narrative as last week against UCLA. Mendoza is going to whip the shit out of Maryland, further strengthen his Heisman candidacy. Um, but it's gonna be really interesting. And the cocktail party in Jacksonville, Florida, actually, Florida, Georgia. I'm seeing some Georgia fans that I talked to saying we're gonna lose that game. Yeah, no. Billy Napier's not the coach anymore. They have, I believe, some interim crappy coach. There's no coach. There's no interim coach that can beat Kirby Smart. I don't care how much shit I'll talk. They are not beating Georgia this year. Gunnar Stockton's gonna light up the field down there. And Georgia's gonna be coasting through that game. Notre Dame, Boston College. Don't really have to talk about that one. Texas Tech, Kansas State. Not really either that one either. Not really either that one either. Wow. South Carolina, Ole Miss. What's going on in Oxford? Obviously, the Lane Kiffin story. We're talking about the coaching carousel here. South Carolina's 1-5 in the SEC. Ole Miss is 4-1. I say Ole Miss keeps the streak going. I don't see them losing for the rest of the season, honestly. Purdue, Michigan, Georgia Tech, NC State, Oklahoma, Tennessee. All right, getting kind of down to the wire here. The final three states of games. I'd say they're actually pretty interesting games, honestly, other than UCLA, Nebraska, or USC, Nebraska. That's actually going to be a decent game as well, I'd say. That's gonna happen. That's happening in Lincoln, Nebraska. But Oklahoma, Tennessee. Let's talk about this game. Joey Aguilar and the guys coming off I'd say a pretty impressive win in Lexington, against the Kentucky Wildcats. I was kind of believing that Kentucky would have a decent shot first half. Obviously, Tennessee, they come out with the win there. I forgot the final score of that game, if I recall. Oklahoma, coming off back-to-back losses, I want to say. No, no, no. Well, either way, coming off a heartbreaking loss to uh the Sooners, or not the God damn it, the Rebels in Ole Miss. Um, they come off a home loss. They're going in. They're traveling into Neyland Stadium, obviously in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I don't see them coming out alive. I think Joey Eckler and the guys are going to gobble them up. Poor John Mateer, and the boys and the Sooners, but unfortunately, the Boomer Sooners are going to get boomed this weekend in Knoxville. I got Tennessee. I would say I don't got Tennessee big, but I have Tennessee by a sizable margin. USC, Nebraska. Gonna look more into that game. It's not gonna be one of my picks, but I might just have that as like a. USC is currently 6.5. That's the spread. I will choose Nebraska against the spread, however. I think they put up a good fight against the Trojans there in Lincoln, especially, with I'm not going to use home field advantage as a huge thing, even though surprisingly Nebraska has a really good sense of home field advantage. Um, but nah, we got College Game Day, final game. Of course, College Game Day is going to Salt Lake City for a 10:15 game. I mean, really, damn, you're gonna have a lot of drunk fans down there. I mean, actually, not really. They're probably all gonna be sobered up by the time you get down to the game there. It's 10:15. You have college game day at what, 9 a.m. Damn, that's gonna be a long day. Cincinnati at Utah. Cincinnati coming all the way over from Ohio. Damn, they're both in the Big 12. That's crazy. Um, but Cincinnati's traveling all the way from Ohio. They're 5-0 in the Big 12. What a sleeper in the Big 12. Wow, damn. Okay. So they're coming over. Playing Utah, which is they're riding in. They're disappointed that they lost to BYU a couple weeks ago, but they're riding in. Coming into the playoffs or being unranked last week, they're riding in. Cincinnati. That's gonna be one of my good picks. I'd say the spread currently has Utah favored by 7.5 points. Not a lot of people believe in Cincinnati despite being 5-0. I believe they beat, like I said, Arizona State at the beginning of the year or earlier on in the year. That's, ooh, man, that's gonna be an interesting game. You'll see my picks on Saturday, Saturday or Friday, because I kind of want to put that Memphis game in there. Maybe not really. Memphis is probably gonna blow them out of the water. But despite that, we got college football week 10. That's kind of it. That's kind of all we're looking at. I'd say we're gonna have some interesting headlines from Vanderbilt, Texas. That's gonna tell us a little bit about both teams. Can Texas kind of revive their playoff hopes? Can Vanderbilt, kind of stay as consistent? Well, can they kind of stay hot? Um, and then we got, potential upset alerts in maybe Oxford, Ole Miss, South Carolina. Can Purdue? Yeah, Purdue's on fire. We're not talking about Purdue. Um, Oklahoma, Tennessee. That's going to be a pretty interesting game. What's going to happen there? Who knows? But despite that, college football is as wild as it will ever be right now, and it's not going anywhere. It's not slowing down. NIL and this whole coaching carousel. I mean, next year it's going to be completely revamped. Everything's going to be different, But I'm really excited for the 12 team college football playoff. I know that I think early December is when the first college football rankings come out. It's going to be very interesting to see that. Can USF kind of come back, and play, and be that team that we all knew they were, the team that beat Florida? Obviously, Florida's not really a good school now. They don't even have a head coach. They have like an interim. Um, But despite that, it's been a pleasure to join you guys again after so long. Tomorrow we have the NFL Week 8 review. Lots of interesting headlines from that game. A lot of sad injuries. Obviously Cam Scatterbo goes down. But I'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Um, talk about the NFL. Obviously we got Commanders and Chiefs tonight. Jaden Daniels, I believe, is playing. No, no, no. Jaden Daniels is not playing. Jaden Daniels is going to be out, which actually sucks because Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel will be back in town for that game. And we have to listen to probably, I think Chris Collinsworth glaze Patrick Mahomes again tonight. But I hope everyone has a great week. It's Monday. Make your weeks great. Um, Kind of do whatever you want. I wouldn't say do whatever you want. Let's kind of revamp Mike's motivation for Monday, guys. Damn, I forgot what I said. It's been that long. I forgot what my outro would be. Um, make today a great day. Make the week a great week. Do whatever your heart desires. Don't let anybody tell you what to do because they don't know you. God bless everybody. Have a great week. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. tonight is when this episode will be coming out. So I'll catch y'all then. So peace out. Y'all have a great week.